Yeah, good.
Hello, Mom. Hello, Dad. Send money.
Quickly. That's great.
All right, so.
So that's my backstory. You know, I mean, that's...
And AJR was a big part of your 20 years as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that was also, I mean, you were running a program.
Yeah.
But that,
that
had run its course too, I guess, for you.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
You see...
You did it, and you had to go.
It's interesting. I mean, I don't really see it. You know, it's interesting. You know, you could see yourself in the eyes of the world, which may, you know, respond to you by saying, you know, we value you and now we don't value you as much anymore. Or, you know, the way I like to see it is that when you're working for someone else, you have this opportunity. In the ideal world, you can find people whose synergy aligns with yours. You can find people who value your gifts and only want to hire you for those gifts. So the energy is great between you, there's collaboration, there's people who value your work, but more often than not, organizations that are built by other people have their own value system, and they also have their own goals in mind, which don't necessarily jive. I mean, I know personally, if you were asking, you know, several hundred conservative cantors, do you feel the synagogue is running in the direction that you really believe in? I don't know how many people would say yes. Would it be 5%?
I don't know. That's a good question. It's a very good question. It's basically the state of the conservative movement right now, which is in stress, distress.
Yes.
In many ways.
Yes.
I we all agree with that.
Yeah. So tell me your story. Tell me your story. What is your story?
All right, my story. What is my story? I've been in Congregation Bethel 19 plus years. Went to cantorial school at age 32 after doing other things in life, including University of Michigan, musicology, master's and all but dissertation in historical musicology. Left that. Went to the business world for a few years, 5 years, sort of figuring things out while I was in the business world, staying involved with music, and age 31, had my epiphany. Where do I want to be? What do I want to do? What do I do well? What do I love? And music, Judaism, and teaching all came together. And the Cantor, based on my experiences, starting from a very young age with a Orthodox Cantor.
Pizza's gonna come out any minute.
Okay, thank you. In Baltimore, I was a boy soprano soloist, a choir, of all-male choir in an Orthodox shul. And
cool.
That was my point of reference.
That's where you, yeah, that's where you, right. Where you were home. That was home.
That was home. Certainly home. Good associations. It was, in fact, when I saw at age 31 to 32 to enter the Cantor, I didn't have Reform conservative. I was not tied to any movement. I know no allegiance. I was not a Ramah kid. I was not a Israel kid. These weren't the values that we espoused at home. I went to shul. I went to shul Saturday morning. My parents worked. We ate kosher in the home, treif out.
Yeah, me too. Same thing. Conservative upbringing.
But I don't even call it. I wouldn't label conservative because we had no allegiance to the conservative movement.
Right.
So it wasn't even that. It may be now you may identify it. That sounds like conservative.
Right.
But that's it.
That was what Jews. That was whatever.
It was what Jews did. Orthodox Jews did that too, but they weren't. Orthodoxy took a turn to the right, sharp turn to the right, and so we could belong to an Orthodox shul and still eat treif out, and it didn't seem incompatible.
Right.
Because there was none of this watching and and looking over your shoulder and identifying if you did this, you were Orthodox. So, that neither here nor there. So the decision to go into the Cantor, the final decision was based upon was I faking it or was it real? I was not going to fake it. Fake it means live the lifestyle. If I could not live the lifestyle of someone who called himself Cantor, I wasn't going to do it.
Walk the talk.
I had to walk it, and walk it meant keep kosher, observance.
Yeah, right.
I mean, obviously that spectrum. There's a great,
latitude, right?
Latitude,
yeah.
a great latitude. But I was not going to be one person in private and in public be another. Integrity.
There we go.
Integrity is the name of the game.
Definitely.
It's always been my thing. Integrity.
And you know something?
Integrity.
When we work together at the academy, and you ask students, to step up their game and to see what they were made of, challenging them in ways that they were uncomfortable, but yet facilitating their growth as a result of it. They understood that they could challenge their own fears and rise. And I think part of being a person of integrity is that you will be challenged along the way, and you will need to step into your truth at that time. So
I did not care where you were. I care where you end up.
There you go. That's true. Well,
everybody starts at all kinds of places. Wherever you are, that's fine. I don't care if you know nothing. But you got to end up here.
Right.
I don't care how you get there.
Right.
But you got to end up here.
Right.
Because that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
And you got to come to me rather than me coming down to you. I can come down to you to a certain extent. I'm not so dogmatic.
No.
But ultimately, you got to come up here because that's where you got to be in order to get this. If you want to call yourself a Cantor, you got to be up here. Now, once you leave me or leave the school, then you make your own decisions. But it's not because you aren't prepared.
Yes. Yes.
You are going to be prepared because you are.
Yes.
Because this is the way it has to be.
Yes.
And you can, however, it's like a doctor. You don't want a doctor taking out the manual on corpuscles when he's doing the operation.
Right.
Excuse me.
No question.
You're going to know this, and you're going to leave here knowing it, and then what happens after that is in your hands.
Well, clearly the students that you've touched over the years, they would come to me, because I knew many of them, and they would come to me and they would come frightened and they would come, rattled, and I said, that's the standard you're going to have to live up to. Now, how can we get there? In terms of how do we ground ourselves enough to be able to reach high? And you also, as tough as you may seem, you also were very compassionate and enable people to get there. So
absolutely,
so
you do it with kindness. You do it with love. You do it with humor, warmth.
Yeah.
But don't mistake that for standard, for less standard. I mean, Cantor, I love her story. She says, I got the only B she ever got was in my class. That she aced everything, but in my class, because she wasn't an A student.
Right.
She couldn't read. She couldn't, she couldn't negotiate. It doesn't mean she couldn't in the future, but she earned her B or B plus.
And I think that's informative. I mean, when people go out in the field, you don't want to give them false hope that in some way, or false sense of security. You want to be honest.
Absolutely. And
but compassionate, like you said.
It's compassionate, I said, but I don't give anything lower than a B.
Yeah.
So we got to keep doing this over and over until you get to the B, because that doesn't mean you get a C, then you can leave.
Right.
That's not how it works, because nobody's going to check your transcript to see if you can Cantor.
That's right.
That doesn't work that way. This is not that kind of school.
Well, I always love the fact that you took that tremendous amount of interest in people. You started to get to know them as people, and you got to see what motivated them, and you got to see their stumbling blocks, and you were willing to go to that very personal place in order to reflect it back to them and say, we can do this.
Yeah. So getting back to 832 entered. Took 5 years in a 5-year program. I didn't think I'd do it in 5 years. I thought I was better than that. But 5 years is what I needed. 1 year in Israel, 4 in New York.
It's a long time.
Long time after you've already gotten your master's and just,
yeah.
doctorate, all that kind of stuff. But you give up your job, and
yeah. So make sure it's still going. Yeah.
And so so I started at the Malvern Jewish Center for 3 years. Cantor Wolberg's old job. That was where he was.
I was going to say.
R.B. Ornstein. Is that name ringing a bell? R.B. Ornstein? Maurice Ravel scholar. He was a congregant. He wrote his biography, the letters, that kind of thing. And so he was an observant Jew. Connor hooked up with him and was at his house every Shabbat afternoon for lunch. It was one of those just great shifts. And then the last year he said, my brother is the rabbi in the congregation in New Jersey. And they're looking for a cantor.
That's great.
I said, New Jersey? Who lives in New Jersey?
Right.
So the next week he'd say, my brother's a rabbi. They're looking for a congregation.
Wow.
I'm not going to every week until the Chinese water torture until I said, okay, I'll check it out. And that's what it was. I started there in August of 1992.
Nice.
There for 19 years. Yechiel Ornstein was there 13 years, retired. Francine Roston, 6 years and counting. And great 13 years. Yechiel Ornstein just believed in me, and I was able to grow.
Yeah.
Francine Roston,
well, you did more than grow.
Yeah.
I mean, when we would talk at conventions, you were doing the block sacred service one year. I mean, hiring a full orchestra and choirs.
Right, exactly, right.
Grow is mild. It's like you reached. Tell me some of the things that you're most proud of in your time.
Generally the principle was, how do I get Jews closer to the tradition, wherever they are?
Right.
That's it. That's the bottom line. So what is the big? I started a Chaver Gadisha, the first in the area, conservative Judaism, bringing new life to an old tradition.
Wow.
We started from nothing. So we ended up with 60 congregants on the list who would be a part of one of 4 subcommittees: Tahara, Shmirah, Chinuch, and Nichum Avelim.
Wow.
There you
Can
go.
I get you anything else right now?
Yes, plates.
Or right on the...
I thought I had you. I thought I couldn't do it.
Hold on, we'll just stop this for a second. I've decimated the pie in your absence. Those are yours, baby. That was great pie. Nice thin crust. Very good.
This lady is she's a real fighter. You can see.
Yeah. All right, so tell me about.
So where are we?
Yeah, let's go to like this conversation. So here you have this great outpouring of love from people who clearly value your work. And so you said to me on the phone, you said that you weren't not going to be in the thick of it to see where it goes. You stood up for yourself.
Yeah, I did not go passively. I go passively because I felt, I felt ambushed.
All right.
And I was not going to. They were trying to. It wasn't a firing. It was a non-renewal contract. It wasn't a firing. There's no ground for firing. There has to be cause. They couldn't prove that. But they tried to make a case for non-renewal, and the case, the congregation never bought into it. They didn't buy into it, and that's really what happened. And there was a great outpouring. First came down this time of year. It was 1 year ago. Started happening.
How did it happen? Did you meet with the president? Did you meet with the rabbi?
The rabbi, president.
Right, and they came in and they said, we have some bad
Not
news.
cooperating, no, not yet. Not cooperating, you're not following direction, you're insubordinate. Insubordinate was...
Insubordinate.
Insubordinate to the rabbi. She interpreted insubordinate honesty. I call it honesty. I don't call it insubordinate. I call it honesty.
Like for example,
Like direction, things that are happening, and I speak my mind in private to her respectfully. And that's I'm not a team player. So, and then they try to.
but you didn't undermine anyone's work, right? Oh. So you basically, what you're saying is because you had a different voice, you were seen as someone who needed to be to leave.
Time to go.
Right. And was it so far removed from her voice?
I would say she tacks left of center, I tack right of center.
I mean, was it substantial in terms of stuff that would have put you in an uncomfortable position?
No.
Or is it just that you saw other ways to motivate the congregation, to inspire them? Like, can you go into any specifics? Or the big things, the big deals?
You know, how do I put it? I guess she saw me as not. How do I put it? She was trying some experimental services. Fine. One service had no musaf, this. I thought it was outside the box. I said they'll have to let me know that this is where they want to go. They did. Went along with it. Did everything asked of me, but it was just never good enough. It was not enough for what she wanted. And I said, this congregation, maybe this isn't who the congregation is. It was like I had spoken terrible words. I'm obviously I'm being aphoristic here, you know, just
Yeah.
It's a rabbi who's first woman rabbi of a congregation of 500 or more families, and not a particularly secure person. All of that plays into it,
Right.
and I think this became her agenda.
I have a question for you. How many of the colleagues that you know actually are in pulpits where it is both in word and in deed a collaboration? I mean, is it always, you know, the pecking order 1 and 2, and number 2 pretty much does what number 1 says?
You know, I think this was the issue with me. I mean, what is the relationship between a rabbi and a cantor? Are a rabbi and a cantor colleagues? Are they partners? I understand the issue of Mar D'Atra. I understand the final word. I understand that one person has to have the final say. But in everything? And is there a real partnership? There never was. In my case, never was.
But the former rabbi, there was.
There was. Right?
Your words informed his thinking and vice versa.
Totally secure with himself.
No
I had
problem.
great respect with him. I had tremendous respect for him. Tremendous. I put his visit with his ALS. It's sad to say he's a breathing tube. You know, he's almost gone. You know, so it's just hard to, he's watching all this disintegrate.
His life's work.
Yeah. It's hard to watch. But
And so basically you could never be accused of being anything but authentic. And knowing you probably had, as you said, the Derek Eretz to respectfully disagree. And you did explore things, and she took it as, you know, a sense of like that you weren't going to back her. And
I feel like I have an obligation to voice my thoughts respectfully.
Yes.
An obligation.
And where does that obligation come from?
It comes from our investiture. It comes from, I think, the fact that we went to the Jewish Theological Seminary, 5 years there, 20 years in the field, respect of the congregation. And ultimately, listen, when you have 105 families resign,
That's a
what's
lot.
happening now.
It's enormous.
It's not done because once the next billing cycle goes out, then you'll see the last wave leave.
It reminds me of the woman who came over. You know, there she was articulating what you meant to her and to her family, how much you meant, and what is happening in the congregation? I mean, as a result of you leaving. I mean, apart from numerically, people are going. What happens as a result of this experience to the community? Like, what do you sense?
Well, it's really it's a painful experience to see it, to watch it. You're seeing people yelling at each other in meetings, congregational meetings.
Right now we're 5.
You're seeing angry emails, very angry emails, and I only see a portion of them.
Can I get you anything to drink?
And what you see is all the discontent boiling to the top. And if everything is suppressed, you say, oh, that's all right, we'll just keep going. I have institutional loyalty. I may not like this, I may not like this. But this sort of just causes it to come up to the top.
Do you find that there's any of the leadership that's able to continue the conversation in a way that feels like Menschlichkeit, as if this is a tough conversation and we want to be able to continue it in a way that befits the community? You're saying.
Now? I don't think now. I think it was a great attempt before. There was serious attempts to make that happen.
I'm not trying to be like Christmas in Wales.
It's a failure on so many different levels. And I take partial responsibility myself. Obviously, I'm not coming across here as Mother Teresa. I take my share of responsibility because if I didn't, I would have seen this happening and I would have asked for mediation. I would have asked for the forces to try to bring it together. I did not see this coming. And then when it did, there was nothing I could do to change it. And I saw the breakup. I saw, when I felt it, I said, if we continue down this road, this congregation will be set back for years. If we don't try to work this through behind the scenes. We're going forward. So the answer to that is, I think that there was months and months and months of dialogue, months of it, and the leadership. I think really very much.
You have excellent Parmesan, do you?
Do you want a sandwich or the
A sandwich, please. Yeah.
French fries?
No thanks. Just a sandwich. Yeah.
So I get
Yeah, I'm warming up.
Good.
everybody else okay?
I like that. I love it. I love it.
So yeah, that's you said there were months. There was actually
Months of
when it bubbled up, when it finally hit the fan, people came forward.
amazing numbers. I'll tell you what happened. I was told May the 3rd, President Schul meets me. I'm trying to meet him for 3 months. February 13th, he sends the first letter. May the 13th, May the 3rd, I finally meet with him.
What does that mean? Does that mean he refused to meet with you for 3 months?
He did not meet with me, right? He did not meet with me.
So in other words, they told you what was going to happen, and then there was no conversation.
They didn't tell me what was going to happen. They were in consultation. His surrogates. May the 3rd was a done deal.
There's still a lunch.
But he made a critical mistake in process. He didn't inform the board. The past presidents and he and the executive board, but they didn't inform the board what was happening.
Just a small group of people.
Right. So May the 3rd. But then I hire a lawyer. Call Steve Stein. Hire a lawyer. The whole thing's going in. And I'm trying to find an exit strategy. How am I going to? If President Schultz comes here and said the done deal, you're not being renewed. You believe it, right? Don't you believe it?
Well, unless hundreds of people come to your side and say.
Well, I never thought of it that way. So he says, make sure, and of course you understand your conscience. You cannot speak ill of this or this or this. So I'm not saying anything to anybody. There's months going on between February and May. 2 or 3 people. But inside, I'm not sleeping. Every night I'm up. 4 in the morning.
What were you going through?
I was going through turmoil. Thinking, how did this happen? Why did that happen?
They wanted you to write a letter to the community saying it was your decision.
Right.
The wife was right.
I'm thinking all the work I put into this.
And I was ready to write it.
I guess the wife went home and he came, remember?
If they let me
Several last names.
leave immediately, not 1 year later to the end of my contract. Let me leave end of June.
Give you a year to find a new position.
Yeah, just pay me.
Pay the year out
Like,
after 19 years.
and they wouldn't do it. They wanted to squeeze me. They said, we'll give you 60%, 70%. By the way, this is all, I can't,
Yeah.
you understand?
Yeah.
This is like
No.
probably against the clauses in my current
Let me
contract.
say this for the camera.
Antiquated. I know that a friend of mine,
If there's anything uncomfortable in this piece, or this particular section of it,
It probably shouldn't be included
okay, then it won't.
because
because most people, don't have the ability to like bug out for lunch.
I don't want to put you in
he
jeopardy.
feels it. She goes to the past president, one of the past
She
presidents.
says, "What's happening?"
What's happening? I can't tell you. Go to the president.
He said, "I can't tell you."
I can't tell you, but speak to.
Well, once they say I can't tell you,
I can't tell you, but you speak to President Schultz. Say, David, what's happening here? And why is it? What's happening with the Cantor? What's wrong with the Cantor? Did he tell you something? Well, he's ready to get me to, for violating my contract terms by disclosing.
right? And it wasn't you, obviously. It
Right.
was,
He says, "Trust me, I'm doing what's best for the congregation. I don't trust you."
what about their commitment to you that it would be hush hush? Once they say that, doesn't that mean that
We haven't ordered yet, just so you
that the
know.
terms are disclosed?
I don't know. Anyway, she contacts a past president. One past president, an older guy. I don't have to hold back. They're trying to get rid of the
What do you
Cantor.
think they're up
As
to?
soon as she heard that, she started robocalling. Within 72 hours,
Maybe they
the board
won't
meeting was supposed to be called in 72 hours. 225 people show up at a board meeting. 225. It was a emails were flying in all directions.
How freaking cover.
It was,
Wait, let's hold
they
that.
stormed the board meeting. They stormed it. I was getting emails from their lawyer threatening me.
And
All kind of threat, absolutely. Threatening, everything.
A warning meeting.
And
right? Where's that?
The night of, I know the shit's going to fan that night. They're all coming. There was an exec meeting, private meeting, because you got to leave. They said, what's the reason we got to leave? Because the Cantor has not given us the permission for you to be here. So they called me up. They called me up that night.
Do you give them?
Do you get permission to disclose that? Disclose. I said, I have nothing to hide. I have nothing to hide. You can talk about whatever you want.
Go
I
for it.
have nothing.
Let the chips fall.
And it was, they had members of the United Synagogue there, they had their lawyer there, because they knew this was going to be, it was a tsunami that hit. It was a tsunami that hit.
225 people.
Yep. There's a congregation of 450 families, 225 showed up. That night, nothing happened. They did not fire, of course they couldn't get it through. To make a long story short.
Don't. I want to hear it all.
Okay, so then family, so that night, it was like final, after 3 months holding this in. It was like they stormed the Bastille. The congregation would not have it. So then the emails were flying. They were going crazy. I mean, all directions.
Hundreds of people.
Hundreds of people.
That must have been unbelievable.
Unbelievable. It was truly,
You saved them, I hope.
Oh yeah, we have a whole,
I would love to hear
somebody
people-
put up a website called Save the Cantor. They put up a website and people were writing. We have emails like you wouldn't believe of tributes of this, right? What I meant to you, what you meant to us, and this.
Of course, you can't cut the heart out of a community and expect it to not to respond.
So
That's unbelievable.
So what happened in August? The rabbi, the president of the shul, the rabbi said, either he stays or either he goes or I go.
Oh, the
And that was
ultimatum.
It was the ultimatum. She gave an ultimatum. He goes or I go. President of the shul.
Didn't want to even have a conversation. Didn't even want to work it out.
Nope. and he resigned because the pressure was too great.
I'm sure.
He resigned.
I'm sure he couldn't sleep at night.
He was getting all kinds of stuff. Right.
I wonder why.
That's right. So he resigned within weeks. They had a big congregational meeting. Another meeting, 300 people showed up at the next meeting. 300 at the next one.
That's unbelievable.
Yep. And then she started getting her forces in some of the young families who I not yet.
Recorders.
Which she was referencing.
Young families. Right, exactly. He doesn't know my child's name.
What was that?
This kind of bullshit,
They were
Preschools,
stupid.
it's stupid stuff, just stupid. Please, give me a
If
break.
you look at it, it's nonsense.
Nonsense. And this started going on.
Yeah.
They did a performance review. It was. I had no chance. I had no chance because they threw everything they could at me. The board final vote was on October 30th.
Pick a number and you go with
It was 2-1 against me. And I got a final buyout on December the 6th. That's it. Final buyout. So they're paying the rest of my salary, severance, and severance coming.
Good.
Got some health insurance. I need it. And 105 families have left. They started a chabura. It's really, they're incorporated, tax exempt status, the whole bit. They're going.
They didn't waste any time getting out of there.
That's it. And the resignations are just. I lost track of the number of people. I thought it was the 90s. It's over 100. And there are people who paid dues last July. People are calling me up. Will you bury me? Will you this? Will you bury me?
Don't go anywhere.
Don't go, wherever you go, let me know where you're going. That kind of stuff.
The love runs deep.
And so they're blaming me for not stopping all this. Not stopping the turmoil. It's like the rape victim. It's like the rape victim, who's saying, how come you let it happen? What did you do to let it happen?
Blow it up a second time or something.
And so it's bifurcated the congregation. So now...
It happened because it happened.
Right.
Because you had no control over it.
So they don't believe that. So now they're in financial problems. As you lose 100 and some families. So they're going into endowment money to pay their electricity bills.
Always,
So you can imagine what's going on here.
I don't have to imagine.
You've seen it.
I
You were
know.
there.
Yeah, I know exactly what's happening.
Right. So I didn't just roll over. That's the difference.
Can you guys squeeze or is it too tight?
Yeah, so the deal is I didn't roll over. I fought.
I'm so proud of you. You're never a wuss to me. I mean, like, well, it's not even a question of wuss. You know what it is? We have choices in life.
All right. We'll set to order.
You could have said,
Quietly
as you
walked
did, as you
away.
said, pay the full amount and we'll be gone.
Well, I gave them that option.
Right.
I did, but they didn't take it up. They didn't take me up. I was not going to leave.
But isn't it interesting how people could no longer remain part of a spiritual community that would operate that way?
That's exactly it. That is the issue. It's not me anymore. It was the way this came down. They could not stay. They could not stay. People write these, you see these resignation letters, these 2-page resignation letters. I'd be mentioned, that'd be 8-paragraph letter. I'm in 1 paragraph. The rest of it is just content and how this process,
Any cheese?
How they behave.
yeah, how they behave. And the rabbi, what was her line?
And how would you like it cooked?
The board has to do what they have to do. It's there.
She doesn't have the courage to speak her
That's
own.
it.
She's lying.
I would love her to say, I can't stand his guts, he's in my face, he's this or whatever it is.
Truth.
And I would love truth. You show me truth, then I respect you.
So,
Fries?
This, all the rest of this bullshit, and you're just an insecure person. That's it. You're just insecure. That's your insecurity just got you. That's what it is. So anyway, the situation got toxic. I would use the word toxic to describe what happened there.
oh, it's big time toxic.
Toxic, not just bad. Toxic.
Oh yeah, sickness is a sickness.
Yeah. So I mean, so right before the vote,
We're gonna go to fresh.
Mickey asked me, which way do you want the vote to go?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah, because
Like, do you really want to stay?
right, if you stay, you still have.
It doesn't change. Are you willing to work through?
I mean, how are you going to do it? So if
How are
you
you gonna
leave,
do it?
if you leave, you get severance. If you leave, that means they voted you down. That means you get your severance. If I leave, I don't get severance. And that was also a financial issue.
It's a nice sized condo, but we had like 40 people.
So that's what's
And they
been
were
going
standing,
on.
and they were like
And now people doing their thing.
I'm proud of you. I'm very proud of you.
And with
You know, when I was in your shape, your position, not your shape, I don't think I had my shit together as much as you. And I'm proud of you. You know, because, you know, after so many years, it's, the greater the investment, the greater the pain when the separation occurs.
You know, I don't like playing this victim card. I really don't. This is not my cup of tea. I am not. I'm not into this.
But it's a separation, nonetheless.
It is a separation, and I'm glad I'm out.
It's done. It's a relationship which is done.
The building, Bethel is the building that I was in. Some of the people are still there, you know, but a lot of the people left, and they're elsewhere, and those are my people.
Right. I'm so happy with that.
You know, and
So tell me, all right. So tell me the words that came out. Let's go to that space.
what were
You know, the two-page. Tell me how you touched their lives, and don't.
I'm going to tell you what they did. I'm going to tell you what they did.
Don't shorten it because you're like, I want to hear
I can
exactly.
show you the document. I can show you the document.
I want to.
Here's what they did. Here's a couple things they did. A couple people wrote a letter they wanted to take with me on my next interviews.
Wow.
A 2-page letter, which is a beautiful tribute. It was signed by 120 people. Then after that, they wrote short vignettes. This is what he did for me at this time. It's a 10-page letter. It's my Schindler's List letter going to the Russian front. Yeah, it's my Schindler's List letter.
It's everything that you created in that community.
It's for these people. Just write. They said, nobody's going to read 20 letters. Just write 4 or 5 sentences.
So tell me what they were. Tell me some of the things how you touched their lives. I know you're humble. You're not going to tell me shit.
It's the things sometimes I don't even remember. You know, in terms of like doing it, you just do it at the time, and you don't even. It's like being there for Kadisha, being there morning minion, being there in their lives. It's all about how I touch their lives at some point or another. That's what it was about.
Yeah.
It's just
Did they come away with an understanding of who you were and what you represented in the world?
Yes. Absolutely. For them, I am their connection. I'm connection to their spiritual community. For them, I'm their spiritual leader. It's not her.
Yes.
I am.
Yes.
That's what they want. You know. So, tomorrow night.
Watch this. This is pissing me off that I didn't.
Tomorrow night, I have my 3rd class in how to lead Sukkah December and Beer for Shabbat morning. There are 12 people going to be around my table. I'm not being paid for it. I'm not under contract to this Kabbalah. I'm doing it because now they're really motivated to learn because they have to leave. And so, let's do it. If you're going to do it right.
Wow. So these are people from the community who
are the Kabbalah, and I said, I'm teaching a class.
Wow.
We're going to start with Birkat HaShachar Pesukei December. And we're going to learn, and I'm going to give an MP3. They sit around my table. We have tea and cookies, whatever, and we're learning, and we're learning the correct nusach, min hagashkenaz, right? With tunes, and so I'm giving them like 10 different tunes for people, so they have an array of tunes. They can choose whether they want to sing them or not. 3 for 150 and 3 for 136, and 2 for Shirat Hayam, and 1 for Shachar Avakeshacha, and all this, so they can liven up, the davening, but with correct nusach. And then I'll go to Shachri, and then I'll go to the Torah service, and then I'll go to Musaf, and and I'm not. It's
doesn't have that grittiness.
I'm sorry.
Doesn't have the grittiness.
These people want you to continue to be part of it, of their lives. They want you to continue to inspire them. They want to go on the journey with you.
they do, and they're very careful right now because they're not in a position to pay me.
Yeah, but they're like all Hispanics.
They're not in a position. They're just starting out. Nobody's really talking
I
about
think you're
it.
right.
So I'm like,
It's definitely different.
you know, so I'm doing this because
It didn't work.
there's a need, and I can do this.
You have to
They
take
can choose
every.
not to come. They don't have to come,
Daytime.
but
I was gonna say,
I can do this
like,
better than anybody else.
11:32.
And
Sometimes
I hope to stay local.
Yes.
Before the feral people wake up.
These are my people. They put themselves on the line for me.
Right.
They came out on that May 25th night. They stormed the Bastille for me.
Yeah.
They came out.
Right.
They resigned.
Yes.
Now, some of this cover up not the right thing. You know, I'm coming out. I'm doing a scholar in residence in 3 weeks
A neighboring shul.
in Livingston,
Yeah.
5 miles down the. They came 3 years ago to recruit me.
Yes.
I could have had that job,
Surf and turf. And you
and I said no.
At White Castle.
The reason why I didn't do it
fried fish fillet.
was that I wanted to see how I could work this out with Francine. But loyalty. Loyalty. How can I go, leave the congregation and go 4 miles down the road? How can I do that after 18 years, 17 years? Even if my relationship is rocky with the rabbi, I can't do it. Sorry, I can't do it. Thank you very much. They came to the shul, they came to services, the whole bit, and I turned them down.
Yeah, I think that one's gone, isn't it?
See, I believe it's all going to work out. It's all going to work out the way it's going to work. The way it's going to work out is, and I am just going to go out, head held high.
I'm happy for you.
You know, just do it. Not perfect. I am not. Believe me, I can be cranky at times. I can be strong. I mean, I know that. I do know that. I'm not always, you know, my faults. I know what my faults are. I know what I don't do well. I know what I don't do well, but I know what I do well too.
Definitely.
I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses. I try to play to my strengths. And I think I address some of my weaknesses, but you know, you can always do better.
We all have that.
Right.
It's not like
Right.
yeah.
Cut the name or whatever.
Is that right?
And there's one up in East Hanover.
So also going on, I still teach at the seminary.
Right.
Been doing this for 15 years now. So all these cantors coming out of the seminary, they have to go through me.
Whatever the other one is.
Well, they opened one now.
You know,
They want to compete with
as
Charlie's.
I'm tough, but they feel good when it's all over. And not all of them, you know, how the Tommy immigrant. Not everybody's got the, you know, the skills. Has the brain set up. You know, there's something in there inside the brain.
It's a math piece for my mind. Yeah.
You've got some people are better at. Some people are really good at. Some people suffer doing it. So,
Well, whatever the case is, what you're saying is that you get to shape the future of the American cantor.
that's what I feel. That's what I feel like I'm doing.
Explode.
Right.
And then if you leave
Yeah.
But it may be my last year doing it
Why is that?
because they have 17 students.
dark on the
But the what?
They have 17 students in the school.
outside, they're deep fried hot dogs.
17. 3 who are rabbinical school, 17 full-time cantorial students. 5 of them are
Along the
graduating.
river. It's old.
Talk to me
So
about-
old. They still have like the old paneling. The bar has like the old liquor.
I had a dream. I'll use Martin Luther King's opening. One of my dreams
Yeah, what
was,
happened?
I also had a hunger.
You want to get another one? You want to?
No,
one
actually-
more. Come on, one more.
Any cannolis?
They might.
No, I'm good.
Counter.
But I'm so curious. Like,
Let's go in. It's like
I had a dream. You know, I don't know what you envision for the cantor. You know, whether it's always been the type of piece where individuals make their mark. And part of what I want to do is to show the world that collectively we're a spiritual force that can do tremendous good in the world, and to put value back on who we are, and we're not just singers who happen to know a few tunes, but people who, to use your words, took an old tradition and found a new way of accessing it that was so powerful for both the giver and the receiver. You know, you're sharing the wisdom of the Jewish people. You're sharing our sacred wisdom, and you're doing it powerfully. And it's inspiring to the tune where people are creating new communities and engaging you on its inception moving forward. And people are willing to go out on a limb with no spiritual leader rather than be in a toxic community, as you put it. And you're there nurturing that along. And so I'm saying to myself, one of the dreams was, you know, imagine during these times, and what triggered it was when you said 17 people in the school, during these times when there's so many of us, so many professional cantors out of work, you know, on a full-time basis. Many have been cut to part-time and others have been released. And so I'm saying to myself, what a wonderful opportunity to take all that energy and to reimagine something new. And unfortunately, I'm not the type of person who, you know, who can actually remain in these toxic communities any longer, because the paradigm that you know, where a small few dictate to the masses, as opposed to something bubbling up from the bottom that might feel integrated as to what the values of the people really are, as opposed to being shocked and awed. In your case and so many other cases, people feel, what's the word, when people are abandoned. It's a horrible feeling when people feel abandoned by a spiritual community. And so, you know, one of the things I imagine is for us to be in a conversation with ourselves about what it is that the Cantor is going to become, because the leadership of the conservative movement isn't clear about what it's going to become, to the tune of 25% dropping out over the last 10 years. So, you know, and I've always been, you know, it was Einstein who said the people who created the problem can't be the ones who solve the problem. I'm looking for the voice of the Cantor. That's why I'm championing you now. When I hear you talk about your perfect producer, I talk about what it is that you brought to the students who are, you know, who are going through the seminary ranks. It's not going to happen in synagogues with the paradigm that now exists. It has to happen outside of it. That's what I believe with all my heart. And that's why I'm trying to create a website that will speak to the gifts of the Cantor as a whole. And what it is. People should know how people are operating, because if they don't hear the MS from the inside out, and if it doesn't, this is the stuff that should be all over the map. The fact that your people went on the website of the Jewish Theological Seminary and responded to the chancellor right in his face. When I read that article that he wrote and saw your people, I was so moved. I was like, yeah, finally someone is like, someone with integrity is voicing what we all know, but we've been too silent for too long on it. It's not going to happen from inside our ranks, Perry. It's not going to happen from in the communities. I think personally, and I knocked on the door of the CA, and I sent a letter to create some type of group, a group that would begin to, several groups that would begin to imagine something new. I don't know whether that's going to move anywhere, but I see things a little differently. And I really see it as an opportunity, given the fact that there's so many of us out of work. The passion is still there. It's endless what we can become. Endless. I don't need the current paradigm to tell me how I'm going to manifest in the world. You know what I mean? What I'm going to become in the world. Do I need a synagogue to tell me what I'm going to be in the world? No. Especially the toxic environment. So I'm tired of actually being part of that environment. And I think, like you said, we can stand perfectly strong on our own 2 feet as Cantors. No question. You said it before in the minions. Do I need, you know, and if we need text people, you know, doing some puskening, you know, if we need some interpretation of some ritual, fine. Let's bring in some people. But I think what we create is we create a very, direct line to spirit, which is everything. We help people access spirit.
So as long as you can show that it's something related
And
to your office,
it's powerful. That's why I was so curious as to what the letters that were written to you held, because inasmuch as there's a lot of grace in your gift to that community. It's not just the fact that you brought people to this awareness that you be by their side, nurturing their skill sets and their hearts in the process of leading prayer, or little pieces you brought. There's a lot of stuff that you created that touch people in many different ways, and it's the intangible.
I'll have another one of these.
I don't know. I don't think there's one future. I don't think there's one answer. There is no one answer. What you may do is going to be different than what I do.
Definitely.
I am not opposed to change. Change, you have to have change. Because without change, it becomes stale.
And then I get up in the morning.
Stale, you don't want stale.
I go to the garage, I'm
There
like,
has to be
oh my God, where's my car?
vitality. There has to be.
It has to be growth.
Right, but I am one who values the tradition greatly.
Good.
I see it as the Shorashim. I've got to have that tradition is what keeps me anchored. That's what keeps us going. Change, yes, but not change for the sake of change. Change to keep it fresh.
Yes.
like she always went to
Fresh. I don't need to reinvent Judaism. I don't need to do that. I'm nauseated by this. Everybody's just, all their head in the cloud. I don't need, that doesn't, to me, that doesn't speak to me.
So what are the things that anchor you and at the same time allow you to...
Authenticity anchors me. Authenticity. I value the tradition with creativity within the tradition. For a cantor, that is anchored by Nusach Tefillah. It's Nusach. That's our glue. Now you want to change tunes. Fine. You want to introduce readings. Fine. You want to, I don't know, whatever, There's ways, but there's glue.
Give me more examples. That was good.
I come back in when it's dark. I go to a different door.
What are the things that deeply anchor you?
Well, I think it's also, and tefillah is not the only route. It's not the only route. Jews don't join a shul to have tefillah. It's one of 15 different reasons they may join. They join for the community. They join because of youth. They may join because of education. There are all kinds of reasons. They're all, so you've got to access people where they are and be there for them.
I forget where I was. You go and watch.
But there's no, I don't think there's a formula.
No formula.
What works for the Upper West Side is not going to work for suburbia. I don't think. Everybody's trying to recreate BJ and Hadar.
Thank you.
It's very difficult to do that. Very difficult.
To parrot something else.
It's very hard. You see these little things that do work. It's just very hard now. We're going to put them in a suburban shul.
Yeah, I remember there was a time when people kept saying to Ari over at BJ, just send us the tunes, we can do it too. As if the 15 years that led up to the creation of the community in discovering the tunes that moved them and the sharing of that experience along the way, was secondary. You can't take the superficial pieces without the...
Absolutely, it's not just the tunes, it's the Rolly Montalon, it's the his predecessor Marshall Meyer, it's how they frame the tunes, how they frame them. What is the context? It's a population that's ready for it. It's open to it.
It was a particular conversation at a particular time, and they had that.
Yes, a particular group of people in a particular area. It's the urban shul. The urban shul has something about it that people are just
the
a little more.
It's harder to be a suburban because of all of the
like if you gain weight, like most people start to gain weight after
so much family oriented and
some people don't start to gain weight after 40.
the demographics. It's harder. It's a harder nut to crack. Can you name me one suburban shul that has recreated any of that?
An innovator based on tradition. You say that's so creative.
It's hard. It's hard. It's hard to emulate. It's hard to parrot.
Do you think that part of our gifts as cantors is to be facilitators, to allow not just the one way I will sing for you when you need me at this occasion, but that to help people discover their own creativity within the tradition, to be facilitators?
I think for sure.
Because that's what I hear in those words, like that those rabbis, mobilized people for social action change, specifically the BJ people. Has a great consciousness in that regard. And so I was thinking, how well we do it. Hundreds of people coming together for a synagogue musical, all under the guise of let's put on a temple play. But the results of the play is that a community stepped forward together in their creativity, in their you know what I'm saying? It's not just what you see on top, it's everything that it builds as a result of the activity. And so I see us as facilitators.
You do the things that you do well. I mean, you gotta you gotta go for that which you're able to do. And each cantor is going to have different strengths, different ways about it. To find the hook, to find the way to pull the person in.
It was really great.
The future of the profession is, I don't know, 20 years from now, I just saw,
it's going to look different.
The cantor educator is the model of the future.
You think so?
Yes, 100%. Look at the.
Wait a second. I'll be 75. I'll be living probably in Carmel, California, a little north of where I am now.
You'll be in Boca at Coconut Creek.
I'm already in paradise.
4:30 early bird special. You'll have white shoes on. You'll have checkered pants, shorts with a camera.
I'm not going to Florida, but I'll probably go to Northern California. Florida's too depressing for me. But I want to take that bet up. Because I don't think that the paradigm, I don't think that cantors are going to have anywhere near that. And the reason why I believe that strongly is because when you tell someone, for you to be recognized as valuable in the community, to wear different hats, it's not what I consider to be the asset of an organization. There's a thing called appreciative inquiry. Have you heard of it? And it's only, I just found out about it myself. It's when you take someone and you only ask them to do that which they do really well. You don't ask them to become something else that they haven't.
Right.
And when everyone in an organization is doing exactly what they do because they're passionate about it and they do it well, because of that love perhaps, then you have a community that's, because cantors right now, to say that we should distill the essence, which is the way we touch the soul by becoming an administrator for a school.
Let me tell you something. Here's the piece that you have to acknowledge. The piece is congregations are getting the financial issues. They're getting smaller. Right now, I will say there are 12 jobs out there. I will say 8 of them are cantor educator jobs. I just saw one I could not believe it. Overland Park.
Where's that?
Kansas City. David Barash is old. David Barash. Overland Park. It's right. It's Kansas City. It's
Kansas City.
They have a congregation of 800 families. They're looking for a cantor educator. 800 families. Can you believe they have one person who wants to do both? Is that shocking?
You know something?
I have to tell you.
I'm gonna tell you something. I'm gonna tell you my take on it.
This is unrelated, but I'm just thinking about your son.
But if you use the current paradigm that now exists, that doesn't shock me. That's the only, that's what comes up. But if you create a new paradigm of a synagogue, I think anything is possible. And personally, that lots of people are going through hard times, not just Cantors, in terms of being able to keep a job by doing more, taking on more responsibilities. You know, and I appreciate that.
So she said, well, there are these families.
But I've never known a community that understands the value of a Cantor, where 225 people show up at a moment's notice, 300 people a few months later, to say how that person touched them, where money could not be found.
We have these families that, you know,
It's not money,
they're
man.
in Irvington.
There are people, my little shul in Santa Monica,
And they find their way to make it.
out of work, losing jobs. The building fund came just at the time, 2007, when the shit hit the fan. People didn't renege on their pledges. People did not say, I have no money. They said, I'll pay you a little later. I want to continue my support. If there's value, people especially. There are Yidden that are not necessarily English, whatever that expression is, but most, I think, people, Jews can afford it.
They probably
People
can.
from Burma, Miramar.
What I think is going to happen initially, there just aren't people to fill these positions
And they
now.
never went to school.
They are going to. They do not have. Are there 8 Cantors out there who could run who have the qualifications to run a Hebrew school and be a Cantor?
You could easily. I just did it. I did it last year.
Qualifications.
I did it last
Qualifications.
year.
Spoken up but he was special. He was one of
Where? Santa Monica?
Yeah, around 125. Why am I telling you that?
George Bush.
Well, you did it for one. Here he is. Hey, Spaghetti. What are you doing?
13 Monday, 20 Monday, 27 Monday.
There's a little girl from Australia who teaches yoga in Santa Monica. So I'm a California boy, and I started yoga a couple of years ago.
Are you from California?
Well, I'm a California boy now.
Where do you grow
Long
up?
Island, Rockland County, Westchester. And it was just 5 years ago that I took off for California.
Okay, I thought you were, that's your home.
But this is my home. This is really my home now because I feel it here.
Yeah.
Right? So I show up at this yoga studio. It takes me 3 months to actually to understand what the heck is happening. And then eventually I started doing it for like a year and a half. I had a small injury, a wrist injury. The short of it, and I'm starting to get back into it. The short of it is that I walk into class at 7 o'clock in the morning. I wake up pre-dawn, have a quiet and then I begin shop in the yoga studio. And it's one of the most amazingly transformative experiences on a spiritual level. And I'm not equating the Buddhism that the yoga studio with what Judaism offers. Every spiritual tradition offers something unique. Nor am I converting to Buddhism. But it's Kedusha there. What I wanted to ask you, based on this conversation, on the surface is sin. And yeah, he's resting your voice. And if he probably means it with all his heart, like, he's probably reaching out in the way that he can reach out to you. But I'm saying to myself, does the world really know what it is that we do? It wouldn't be asking us to be, and I'm not trying to sell you on the idea. The world wouldn't be asking us necessarily to become educators if we fully appreciated what Cantors do. So the reason why I bring up that yoga example is she takes me there every time I go there. You take these people, I saw this interchange that you had with them. Do you know how you listen to them? Do you know what your listening reflects in that relationship? You're amazing. You are so freaking fully present. The walls could have caved in and you would have still been looking at him, smiling and listening to him. With a real shamati, not just a... this is who you are as a person. This is what you've embodied in your Cantor. We are much more than our voices. You said that earlier. There needs to be people, I would be one of those people who write about those voices. It has to be written about because if we're only seen in that small role, you know, the passion that you described, the federal condition, and I'll stop the rant in a minute, reminded me that you're capable of creating anything. That's why when you tell me before, and I want to pump you up, that you don't have a background to run a religious school, are you kidding me?
Where I go to church,
You
kitchen, they actually
could do anything. So whether you choose to do it is another thing. Whether you want a job that maybe in the outset ask you to do it, you want to take it for a few years and see if you can get your foot in the door and hopefully when the economy picks up, become something else. Maybe you bite the bullet. I'm not suggesting anything, but I'm suggesting that you should not look at yourself.
I would shy away from that.
Especially, I know when I saw you pull back when it said Cantor educated physicians are out there. There's nothing you can't do. Really, you're so freaking overqualified. The thing it took to put together the block secret service. How many people did you have to coordinate, oversee, and negotiate? And they're not children, they're adults. I mean, that's the tip of the iceberg. There's 60 current people in Hebrew Kadisha that's active, and you're engaging them all and bringing them into the world and the other hundreds of people in the congregation. What are you kidding? It's how you see it. It's how people are seeing the Cantor. It's minimizing it, and we're not saying enough of what they can do. We're not telling people what they see in front of them. They only know what they know. He's going to ask you about resting your fitness. I have a little anger in me because that's what triggered it. I'll be honest with you. And that's not who we are. We're not a voice. We're not limited to just recording cantorial songs.
We could.
Doesn't he really know you? Doesn't he know you built a Hebrew Kadisha? Does he know that about you?
I don't know.
You don't know. What I'm trying to say is, how do we create a system that appreciates the fullness of what we bring, not fit into a system that doesn't understand its value?
I agree with what you're saying. I think that very interesting seeing the responses to my situation and these letters.
Yeah, and so
I mean, just
outpouring.
So few of them mentioned music.
And you have a beautiful voice too.
So few.
That's unbelievable.
So few. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that. Not that I wasn't intentional, but they did not see me from a music, vocal perspective. That's not how they viewed me. They saw me as part of their lives. That's how they see me. I mean, I think that's... You know, it's like, why does nobody belong to a shul? Most people, it's not all the time. It's when they need you. When they need. I need you now. I need you. I lost my father. I need you now. My son's being born. I need you now. By holidays. I need you. Then, and that's when you are there.
17 or 18.
And you have to be there. You have to step up to the plate when they need you. Now, some people, it's much more. And other people, it's infrequent. But not any less valid. Right? I mean, I have great. I mean, I have no. Some people they speak mockingly of the 2-day-a-year Jew, 3 days. They speak mockingly. No, he comes Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, and that's it. I don't speak mockingly. I embrace them.
Right.
I embrace them. Thank you for joining this show, for being part of this community.
Right.
And you come then, but there are times when you're there.
Right.
You may write a check. You may.
That's your commitment.
Right. That's your. Right. There are different ways. That's right. I have great respect for you, for your identifying with the Jewish people. And you're doing a lot of good things, I'm sure, in your life. You may not be Shomer Shabbos or whatever, but that doesn't diminish you as a person or you as a Jew.
And I don't want to say anything because
and I don't make that. I don't judge. I don't judge.
Right.
I don't treat that person less than the person who's who's putting tefillin every day.
Right.
And I'm sure most people you don't. I'm sure you don't either.
Right.
You don't.
Yeah.
What do you have here?
You meet them wherever they are.
You meet them where they are, and you try to just try to connect, and maybe just yank a little bit, and see how much you can, get them a little. And even if you're there for that moment, they remember that, and that's what they write about. They write about that moment when you were there 19 years ago, when you did this for me, and when you sang at my mother's funeral in French. Somebody wrote.
One night I saw
Why? Because the mother was a French teacher, so I sang something in French in place of a psalm or something, and she remembered that I had sung in French with my mother. I had not thought about that in 14 years.
You heard, you understood her, you felt her, you honored her.
And so that's what imprinted.
So interesting. And yet everyone on a search committee asking the new Cantor who steps up that night the same question. Do you do bar mitzvah lessons? Tell me about that choir. Have you ever worked with the really young kids? Boy, those, and it just irks me to no end. And I've seen it in the times that I've had to commit to going through the process and realizing that the understanding of what it is that we do and its appreciation is so limited. So limited. And I don't say it disparagingly and say like they're at fault. I'm saying we have to do a better job at expressing to the world what it is we do.
Exactly. And I am much more into this notion of Cantor as partnering, colleagues. That is what a Cantor is. A Cantor who is self-actualized.
What would that look like? You talked about the first 13 years having that partnership. Tease that out a little bit. Like what did it feel like showing up, in a staff meeting or a one-on-one with the rabbi creating? Like, what was that about? Bring me there.
It's in all honesty, my rabbi was not he didn't hover.
Yeah, I see.
He didn't hover. He wasn't. This thing was not management.
On a rare occasion when I actually
He was not a manager. He was a rabbi.
there's no place.
So his inspiration was through example, watching him with people, speaking, pastoral function. So for the first 13 years, in many ways, it was watching, imitating, learning from his very best qualities. And as I got along, as I got more experience, then taking those qualities and then making them your own.
Really?
And expressing them. So there's a self-confidence.
Because it heats.
Like that's part.
And you're fulfilled, and if you can do that,
then everyone is in sync.
I think that's amazing.
They feel good. They feel good about their Judaism. They're living Judaism. You're connecting. And you're hopefully fulfilled. You know, you're growing, and I mean anything else is.
I'll send out an email tomorrow. I'll book Mary Beth. Not tomorrow.
I mean, I don't want to say empty, but it's you're on 3 cylinders. You know, you're not.
And then what I'll do is rather than.
And hopefully you have a partner on the Bima who understands that, who respects that. And it's hard if you're not in sync. It's very hard. It's very hard because all this this hot mind problems. It's just they don't recognize what you do. They see what you don't do, and they want you to be what they want you to be, rather than seeing what you do. Hakarat tov, not really understanding that, but whole congregation understanding.
Sure, they would take them.
Shocked when 100 some people resigned. Wait, how did that just happen?
Right.
Wait a minute. How could the 105 people resign? How could that happen? I didn't know that was going to happen.
disconnect.
Didn't you see them coming to these meetings? Didn't you hear these hundreds of letters? Didn't you get it? Don't you see that? I mean, just arrogance. It's arrogance. True arrogance. So you have the right answer. You're going to take me to the promised land? Is that what you're saying? You're now going to take us out of the Bidmar into the promised land.
Beautifully spoken.
It's hubris. Hubris. How dare you? What, you did surveys? You did congregational surveys? Is this what they want? Okay. How come all these people are leaving?
You should get your money back to the person who did the survey.
Right, because you read that survey the way you wanted to. You set it up. You got the answers that you wanted. That doesn't mean don't change. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that.
It means the process was flawed.
The process is
And that's what I'm saying about synagogues. Since the process is the same at every synagogue, it does not change. It doesn't change. The paradigm is flawed.
Oh yeah, I know. Well, he's in Bangkok.
Because this will always be, anytime it's a hierarchical process like this, that's always the outcome. But it's exactly what you had said it was. Until people with integrity stood up and said, do this to our community. Not only to you.
sure.
You know, you're just the symptom, which is, well, me, I'm the symptom, but you're the one that reminds them of their greatness. That's another thing that Cantors, I believe, do. Of their highest possibility, of the noble selves. When we sing, when people lean on us, on those Kol Nidres that you talked about for the Baltimore, that was very funny. Singing to the Baltimore City was like 30 Kol Nidres, adding them up. But, I mean, look how many souls trusted in you for those years. That's an enormous amount of vulnerability that people put into our hands, into your hands. And the way that they treated someone who... The way that they treated someone... No.
But you know what though? I remember, but it's too
it's like they had some handicaps or something. But,
so that's a story.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to jump into something. I'm going to jump. I'm going to jump into something wrong. We'll see how it goes. You know, I got to hear what the priorities. Yeah, I'm okay.
You're you're an exciting person to be with. You're spiritually honest, which is a rarity.
I try to be honest. I am honest. I am honest.
But you're deeply honest, which and you're transparent, which I am almost there. I'm almost at your point.
You're pretty transparent.
When I'm in, well, you know, there's in the moments that we get tested to stand true, I'm working on it, and it's coming, but I love the way you express it. I mean, here you are, you know, still in the midst of it all, and you sound grounded.
I know who I am. I know who I am. I know what I do well, and I know what I don't do well. I know what I don't do well, and I don't claim perfection. I do not.
Who asked you to?
I do not claim.
Who asked you to?
Well, I do not. I just, I want to
spiritual communities shouldn't be asking people about perfection.
Maybe the model is just screwy. The Cantor rabbi model. It's just, maybe it doesn't work. Maybe it's the exception it would work. Maybe that's the case. It's just because I remember Bill LeBeau. You take Bill LeBeau's class. Was he teaching what you were doing? He taught this.
He used to show up at the seminary, hoping to be inspired. So I guess no. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
He was in Highland Park when you were there. He was probably still in Highland Park, but he came to the seminary and he taught. And he was, he used to teach class. The last year, rabbis and cantors together.
You're right. He's a rabbi, right?
He's a rabbi, but
no,
he's
thinking of someone else.
Bill LeBeau. Yeah. He was with Henry in the Highland Park.
Okay, got it.
Right. Great teacher.
Really?
He used to say, colleagues will be, some will be better, some worse, some smarter, not as smart. Just be careful of the insecure.
Be careful what?
Of the insecure colleague.
The fearful colleague.
The insecure. The ones who is insecure. Insecure because
if
you are
unpredictable,
then you're dealing with. You're trying to.
You can't fix their sickness. You're saying you can't fix the flaws.
It's hard. It's a hard flaw to overcome. And I think until there is some I don't know if it's going to happen. I am not confident of it. I think it's a case-by-case basis. And I think this notion of the rabbi as the deity in many of these congregations, I think it's not conducive to a healthy partnership. It's just not.
I'd love you to write something about it. Are you a good writer?
I'm pretty good.
You know what I'd be very excited about? I would love to know people who... I mean, over time I'll get to know people who are under 45. People I wouldn't know normally by virtue of work, my age group. But I'd love to see the cantors between the age of 30 and 45 that you've met, that have unique perspectives, that are exciting individuals. I'd love to tease them out. I'd love to hear from them. Do you know of any names offhand for those
who are successful? Is that what you mean? Who are? What do you mean? What are you looking?
Passionate, original thinkers.
Look at Mel Kisco, the guy's there. Randy Herman.
Tell me about him. I don't know.
He's doing gangbuster stuff. I think he's doing very well there. I mean, you probably would. You probably have some contacts there. I mean, if you think he's worthwhile, I have no problem knocking on that door. Yeah, Randy Herman, I think, is an interesting guy. He came from a jazz pianist, and he's bringing that component.
Wow.
His pop skills with the Cantor. I think he's doing well. I think Joanna Dolkin.
I know Joanna.
She's I think on her game. She's on her game. She's creative, interesting.
I enjoyed her as a spiritual retreat.
Yeah, I think she's got a lot to offer. I think of that age group.
Yeah, right.
Actually, Randy is probably around 45 now. I think he's probably at the end of it. Joanna's probably 32, 33, 34, something like that. Who else in that age? So I'm not even the one. I know all these students. I'm just thinking of these students who came through. So I know them all. I gotta
kind of go through them in your mind.
I gotta, 15 years. Let me think.
Right.
They're students.
Someone who just like
Just pops out.
blew you, yeah, like
I would say you know who just come out of the seminary is Magda Fishman.
yes.
She's in your neck of the woods. She's crazy as hell. She's crazy, but she is so unique.
Yes.
She will be if she doesn't implode, have an emotional breakdown.
Oh really? I don't know that part.
Yeah, she's just she's a basket case of time. Dramatic, just falls apart, but insanely talented. Insanely.
Yes.
There's nobody like her in the
I've been
camera.
with her. Yes.
Nobody like her.
That's good. We're on a roll now. I know 3 of 3. Maybe someone who but there
You
must
don't
be.
know.
There must be someone who. Those are good examples too.
They're all. Yeah, you know them because you know them. I mean,
I've heard Randy on Kazennet. He does a lot of it. He's experimenting.
yeah, I mean, he's a very good musician, and he brings those musical talents to the pulpit.
Huh.
And I think that's where he's strong.
Yes.
Not that he's I think that's why would a congregant, a young congregant, relate to Nusach Tefillah other than
There you go.
take my picture too?
Yeah.
Hi
Video.
there. You got all the tools. You're equipped. You are with it.
I'm trying.
You're good. I still have my rotary dial phone that I use.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Old school?
It takes me a while, but we get there.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
What was I saying?
You're talking about
Yeah, I mean,
how do you energize a young
you
person in the tradition?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. So you give them a lot of new, and you give them some old, and it's hard. It's hard for a young group. No point of reference. It's harder. More of a challenge.
You know what I've always felt, and that's why, somehow the paradigm of facilitators is something that I want to champion and write about, or find people to write about, because there's a conversation that happens as a result of the way we show up for people, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be directed by us as much as this may sound bizarre, but you know me, I'm going to go to that place in the sacred space that we hold for people. And it's not like we're doing it from a place of, oh, aren't we so wonderful creating this for you? We're doing it because when I watch someone light up, animate, I understand them. There's a thrill in the curiosity that I have with the people that I serve. And in the conversations that we have with each other, I can actually see them tingling. And it's in that space, when I have developed enough trust in the relationship, which you so artfully spoke about in your 18th year when you were interviewed in that paper about everything is relationship. When you get to those relationships, and you are felt and understood, that people will go on the journey with you because you have met them where they are. When I read, it was the weirdest thing in the world, because seeing exactly what I felt, everything is relationship. It has nothing to do with music. And you echo that 14 times. Oh, by the way, that group of people that is reaching out to people at the most intimate part of their lives, the most vulnerable part of their lives, I'm training them to be there for each other as a spiritual community. And I just found myself there. It has nothing to do with music. And so on and so forth. And
That's right.
So I see us as the greatest teachers. I don't know if you see this. This is probably a longer conversation, but did you ever hear of a guy named Jaworski? He writes about leadership, and one of the pieces he talks about leadership as it relates to the Cantor is, it's a beautiful quote. I'll see if I can send it to you, but it's something like, Leadership is not the few dictating the way to go, as much as it is allowing for all the voices to be heard, so that we can move together forward.
It's good. It's good.
And I think cantors do that.
They have potential to. There's a lot of crazy ones out there too. You know that. My colleagues.
I mean,
There's some wild
I
ones.
do not follow.
I don't either.
But
You know,
I love the
but there
cantors
are.
much.
You know,
I mean, self
they're all.
narcissistic.
There's all.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Sugarness.
sugars out there.
A lot?
I think there's.
Like 20%? I want to hear numbers, really?
I don't know the numbers. I mean,
I've been in an interview. I won't put them as part of the...
I mean, yeah. I don't know.
Who are the cantors that you respect the most who are currently alive?
Cantor.
I'm all over that. Good taste, man.
Who do I respect who's alive? I mean, I respect people in different ways for different things.
Tell me.
I respect Joel Kaplan.
Really? Tell me.
Well, he's a very talented musician, a little goofy, but he's in there. He's taking these teenagers, Azamir. He's working with teenagers.
Dedicated to the teenagers.
Yeah, teenagers. He's reaching out.
Love it.
I like that.
I love it.
Cold to D. I like that a lot.
What is it that you like? You like the fact that he's creating wonderful music with them, and he's building deep relationships with them.
Relationships, communities, creating a place for teens, a good place for teens to be, to identify Jewishly. That's beautiful. That's a hard demographic. That's the hardest demographic. Are you get teens together making music?
It's huge.
Huge.
Yeah.
You can get the teens. You're great respect for you. Great. Who else do I respect? I respect Jack's love of the tradition.
Yeah.
And his ability to articulate it, and his passion for it, and his ability to keep the tradition going, both through his teaching and through his cantors. I respect that.
Right. No.
There are others who
seeing
do
him
it,
on
but
Thursday.
he's vocal about it. He's vocal, saying, I think he's fighting a losing battle. I really do.
Why?
For what I said before, I think that it's a language that is so foreign, kept in small doses to so many people.
And yet, when this new congregation came to be trained, it's what you gave them. You didn't give them necessarily, simple, a quick fix, like a tune, and say that this is enough, this is good enough. Just learn this little tune, and that will be enough. You actually started to talk from whence it cometh.
What do you mean with this? Birkat HaShachar P'sukei D'Zimra? Is that what you're referring to? Well, I'm dealing with, first of all, I'm dealing with lay people. Nusach HaTefillah. You have to keep it. You got to keep it simple. You can't.
But, you're talking about the cantorial art versus
What are you
Nusach?
talking?
What are you talking about?
He's talking about cantorial art.
Oh, okay, I see.
What I'm doing is
I
Nusach
see.
HaTefillah,
Okay,
which
okay. All right, now I got you.
Yeah. And so his is about the cantorial art.
I have something.
I respect that he's passionate about it, and he's trying. He's really trying to keep it going.
What are his reasons for its worth in the world? What has he said that represents the Jewish people? I mean, I'm guessing a connection to its sacred past.
I mean, it's connection to its history. It's the pathos of Ashkenaz, Minhag Ashkenaz. It's the pathos.
Do you think that people don't want to experience that type of enormously passionate connection?
They do. they don't know they do. At certain times they do. But it's an uphill battle.
Like, when do they want to hear it?
They want to hear it on an El Malay. They want to hear it on High Holler Hineni. They want to hear it Kol Nidre. They want to hear it certain times. But not
Not a steady diet.
Sparingly, right? Not a steady diet. As
Can we
ornament.
retrain them? Because
you retrain them by working with young people. I just something called the Shots Club. It's one of my.
I remember you told me about
Shots
that.
Club.
Yeah.
I sit around with kids, 5th graders, 6th graders, 7th graders in my office, and we learn Shachrit. Rote, repeat after me. Shochenan maron tekadosh shemo. They do it. They do it. And they, we try.
They're feeling it. They're
Well, you do it
experiencing
at High Holidays. You have your youth choir singing, standing around you with a ton of tokef. Yeah. So you give them moments. You try to instill the passion.
It's good, man.
But
so Jackie's one of them.
Joel's
one of them.
Joel, he wouldn't even. He'd be surprised if I even told it. I do. I respect it. I respect that. Everybody. These our colleagues. They're doing good things.
What are the things that are the lights, the bright lights? You said Jackie and Joel.
I think Jack Chomsky is social action. He's into social action.
Yeah, he's going to APAC.
Yeah. Oh man.
Right.
Oh man, you're a Cantor. It's all right. You can do that.
Right.
Don't pigeonhole yourself.
Right.
I have great respect for somebody who's great musical abilities, or whatever their passion is. I mean.
Whatever their passion is.
Whatever their passion, and like Rebecca Carmi, she's doing all this stuff at the Cantor's Assembly with educational stuff, and Nosh and Drosh, and parlor concerts, and this, and good for her. Good job. That's nice.
Yeah.
That is very nice.
Yeah.
Some people are into, David Propus. I barely know David Propus, but what he's done with these recordings and this, he's taken his knowledge and passion for this area and put it together, and good for him.
Right.
And a lot of unsung people. There are a lot of people who've just been in a shul for 10, 20, 30 years. Just solid, serving. Great respect for that.
What do you think about the idea of a cantorial online, I don't like the word music bank, but you know how there are so many cantors who have written and recorded that remain purely within their own communities. And it would be nice for people to see the entire cantorate, expressed. The ones that clearly have unique ways of expressing themselves. To hear the singers of Israel, to hear the creative liturgical output. I mean, I'm not talking about the stuff on Transcontinental or JewishMusic.com, the highlights of the Passover service by Richard Tucker or the Barry Sisters. You know, that has its place. I'm talking about, what do you call it? I'm talking about, it's okay, I don't want to get that napkin in.
Sorry.
That's okay. No, I like it. So, I'm talking about, like, you know, the hundreds and hundreds of cantors that aren't necessarily, you know, singing, you know, the three cantors in concert in Budapest or whatever it is. I'm talking about the people who write and who are expressive and who are moving. And that was from your comment before that reminded me when you said people who do service for 10, 20, 30 years in a community and who show up in big ways. You know, I'd love to. I mean, those tunes die, I would assume, unless they're passed on. I mean, these people. I mean, do you know what cantors on the other coast are doing? No. Nor do cantors on one coast know what the other coast is doing. But why shouldn't the world hear what cantors are doing? And let the money go to the cantors. Let the money go to the profession. Let it go to a social action cause. I don't know where the money goes, but let them have it on like an iTunes piece, a whole website where you can just. You could read about the cantors, their bios. You could read about the work that they've done in the communities. You can see the person and the forces in which they've contributed.
It seems lovely.
Yeah. A dream.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah. Testimonial to the profession.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't want to burn you out.
Yeah, the drink sort of.
Yeah.
Either be cantor educators or kolbos, cantor rabbis.
All right.
And that's how they're going to make it, survive.
Why? Let me ask you.
Yes.
Why pile over the words?
Survive.
Doesn't that imply a position of weakness? Doesn't that imply a fear of the future?
Well, if you want to be employed. You know, we're talking about employment.
I think, I actually believe that people are not going to go to synagogue anymore in general. There's going to be something entirely new.
That's
They're going to create different communities.
the chavorah, the chavorot. I mean,
And they will need people to create those communities.
right? I'm experiencing it right now.
Right.
Right. I'm like a consultant. I think that's my role is more like consultant. But
they would, you know, people will evolve to the point where they'll need and want spiritual guidance. I don't think it's too far-fetched to imagine it. The problem is we put the job in front. We put the worrying about the job before we have created a model which we know speaks to people.
that is true.
So we stand in this place of fear.
That is true.
It
It is true. You know, but ultimately, it's hard to create. Most places, it's hard to create. You have to. There's models out there, and what do you bring to that model? I mean, I think that's even for myself going forward. You go to an interview, it's what added value do you bring? I'm calling it added value. What added value do you bring to that model? They have a conception of what a cantor should be. I'm going to tell you what a cantor should be. I'm going to tell you what I think a cantor should be.
Right.
You may think that I'm teaching bar mitzvah lessons and having a choir, and I'm going to tell you what I think. Now that could be a great threat to an insecure rabbi.
Definitely.
Great threat.
Yeah. I've had that conversation on many interviews.
Right, and they're saying nice, but
Do you want to hear something? There's a congregation of 1,800 families, and they were offering like $13,000 for the high holidays. And I was entertaining everything at that point. And I said, there's a congregation of 100 families that's offering me $10,000. Don't you think? I said, wouldn't you want, as a congregation 18 times that. And you understand the value of the position of a cantor because you've had a cantor. I'm not naming names. I said, wouldn't you want to honor the position? They lost me when I mentioned money. They would never enter the conversation. I basically said, shame on you. I said, I think you're underpaying and undervaluing the cantor. I said, I'm receiving this. I'm talking money terms, but they went like this. I don't think we'll ever win in the paradigm that's now existing.
I assume you didn't get that job.
I never wanted the job. I had the job. I would never take that job. I would never take the job because in the same way that we imagine ourselves as Cantor educators, repositioning, reimagining, not repositioning.
Nice. It's nice. I think you're right on. I think you're right on. I think you're right on, and
because I don't think these rabbis are going to have positions shortly. Because personally,
most places will need the rabbi still. The rabbi is still going to be hanging around, yeah.
But the paradigm that you suggested, or at least the rabbinical figure that you suggested, is based on the rabbinical figure. Remember let me be clear. You were saying that unfortunately a lot of the positions are self-serving. The rabbis maintaining their positions, and they're by making themselves the center of the community. Use the word God. Making themselves as God in the community. So I don't know if that's really. I mean, sure, there's going to be some people that like the Jews in Brooklyn who want their Rebbe up front and want them to do it, but
yeah, I don't know. I think it's personality. I think every rabbi is a different being.
Yeah.
And you're just going to have to just see how it goes, and not all cantors are. It's. I don't have the answer. I don't have the answer because I think a lot of it's based on personality as well. Personality and evolving paradigms. I think it's a combination.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I was hoping that there'd be a lot more, I don't like to use the word Colbo positions, but cantors as leaders.
Right. That's that Cantor rabbi model. I don't see that. I don't see there are no job openings for that. I don't see. Well, you're certainly not getting it on the Cantor's Assembly, website.
Right.
Needed Rabbi Cantor.
Right.
Rabbi who can sing, or Cantor who can, Hoskin.
Right.
I'm saying cantors who can be educators. That is the model.
Wouldn't you want? How long have you been in the field now?
I'm in my 20th.
All right. So if you had to direct your own community, you want to be able to imagine some like-minded people, like-valued people, like the 100 who left, and to build something from that. Wouldn't you want to go with the people that understand your values? In other words, why are we starting from why are we putting ourselves in a position?
It's true. It's true. There are some people doing that, aren't there?
There are.
Some people?
Yeah.
They're out there. You have to be willing to supplement your income. If you can do that, and you got to get the will of the people. But a lot of people, such different. This Chavurah, they're not looking for leadership. They're not looking for it. They're going about it, and they're feeling their way through it. And any leadership that or there's a rabbi who's a member of the Chavurah, we provide, it's added value. but they're not asking for it.
Yes.
I'm offering it. I mean, I'm offering a morning minion.
Right.
No,
Right. That's nice.
every day.
That's really nice.
Yeah, so we had 13, 14 people there this morning.
It's amazing.
You know, and it's December 6th. Today's what? Also the
February
6th.
6th.
2 months. 2 months now since I've been a free agent, so to speak. We've been doing it for a month, 5 weeks.
That's wonderful.
We don't always get a minion. We
Right.
don't always get a minion.
Right.
But we do sometimes.
It's wonderful.
It's very empowering. You come down, take a shower, you dress, you go downstairs, and you start rearranging the chairs. You pull the Torah out, you get the Sidurim out. You know? That's what I do every morning. People come in, quarter off. Start with, a reading of Torah. Before Birkat Shachar. Make sure in English they understand it. Elu Devarim, or whatever it is. Adon Olam in English. Birkat Shachar, go through. I mean, it's very
That's your game.
Huh?
That's the game that you're setting up.
Yeah.
Feels good, doesn't it?
Yeah, just do it.
Feels natural.
It's very natural. Your site, they're there. I read Torah. Sometimes I don't. I introduce a Torah reading. Just 2 minutes, 1.5 minutes about the Torah reading for that day.
Right.
Not a lot to people have to get to work and all that.
Right.
Got a yurt site, whatever.
Acknowledged.
Yeah.
That's where we should be going. I feel that clearly.
Yeah, so just do it. Not on payroll. There's no payroll. No financial compensation. But these are my people. These are the people who decided to leave, who resigned from the congregation. So what happens when they have a yurt site? Where are they going to go? They're going to go to somebody else's shul? They're going to go to Lorna Wallach's or Ricky Lipitz's shul? They don't know anybody there. Ignore it. Right? They put themselves on the line.
They don't want to be any place but you. Right with you.
So they rate me. Have a yurt site on Tuesday. And you guarantee a minion. I don't know if they guarantee, but I'll have a minion.
That's interesting.
Huh?
They're willing to take a risk to go outside of the model, and yet they want to ask you to show up in the way that the other model was.
So they walked in, they got 12 people standing there. All my living room.
It must feel nice. Must feel real nice.
Right? Tomorrow night class. And
Yeah.
sit around doing Birkat HaShachar. Hasidic variant. They're learning about the Hasidic variant. You know the Hasidic variant?
Yeah. Oh, cool.
What the hell, yeah, they're learning Hasidic variant. What the hell is going on here?
Smiling.
Wahlberg would be thrilled. So they're going to get up, their minion, and lead it.
I don't think that's a far